Hi, everyone. It's that time of the month where members of our team gather together to talk about some of our favorite client activities in recent weeks and a few of the things we've learned along the way. This month, we're going to dive into our AIM workshop and what we're seeing our clients learn most as Boost Midwest joins in on their business journeys. Let's start with introducing ourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Murdoch, Project Analyst at Boost Midwest.
Hi, y'all. I am Rachel Villafane. I am a Project Coordinator at Boost Midwest.
And I'm Marie Stacks, President at Boost Midwest. So let's jump right into what exactly our AIM workshop entails. When we say AIM at Boost Midwest, we're referring to our methodology of analyze, innovate, manage. And to get to the AIM workshop, we start off with a few initial steps. Number one, we conduct a survey of all team members in the organization to score the current operational strengths and weaknesses of your business. So that survey is used as our first step. From there, we then do interviews that we conduct with team members from every level of the business to collect more specific details on workflows, tools, expectations, and that really gives us that varied perspective of what we're looking for. And then we hop straight into our collaborative and engaging AIM workshop, an experience that your team walks away from with actionable steps right there. Once we've captured everything, we send out a recap, recommendations, and a roadmap to take the guesswork out of change management for the process improvement your team is about to embark on. What I just described is a little bit about what our clients experience from their perspective, and we thought it would be fun to share with you a little more of the behind the scenes of what we really do to bring that all together. So to get us started, let's start discussing what really goes into the setting up of the workshop and that data review process.
The first step that I did was looking into the survey data. And so our surveys are Likert scaled responses, meaning our respondents are going to either strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree. And when you're looking at data like that, you want to look at the median response rather than the average when you're trying to figure out kind of one number for each specific survey question. So that was the first step, is just figuring out what was that median response for every single question. From there, we were able to see which ones were interesting, which ones were higher than normal, which ones were lower than normal, pull those specific ones out and look more specifically at the individual data. And so that's kind of where we started. From there, we were able to kind of see some themes, or we are able to see some themes with, communication or like interdepartment coordination, different things like that, right? Really pulling things together and starting to see a story build. So that is the survey side of things. And then we jumped into the interviews and we look at the first thing you want to do is just listen to all the interviews. Listening for things that are coming up more than once. So again, like with the surveys, when you're looking at themes, you want to do the same thing with interviews. So you find out, okay, what's coming up more than once, more than twice, what are the themes within the organization? And then once you've gone through all the interviews, then you want to go through again and listen to pull quotes. So what are things that somebody said word for word that really embody whatever that theme was? You pull those out as your data sources, right? So something that you can give your client to say, hey, we noticed this theme. To back up that I noticed this theme, here is that quote. When we do that, we obviously want to de-identify the data. So if somebody said something that would let their boss know, for example, that it was them, we're going to take that information out. But other than that, we leave it in word for word. And then, so once we've looked at both the surveys and the interviews, we're going to look at both of the themes that we found for overlap. More often than not, there's some overlap, right? In what was said in both things. And then we also look for outliers. The nice thing about interviews is with surveys, right? Once we pick the questions, those are the questions, right? So you can get some really, really interesting quantitative data, numbers, which people love, but you're kind of stuck in a box as far as what that data can tell you. With the interviews, we're able to get a more rich data set, kind of more able to answer the why behind those numbers.
I think the idea that we're taking data and turning it into a story and really building out, an environment around that data really helps our clients figure out what are they really doing day to day and how is it showing up in various components of their business. So I know, Rachel, you did one of our most recent clients, all their data analysis. And, there were a couple of times where they're like, whoa, we would have expected that. So it's fun. You find surprises both for us, but also for our clients. So, a part of the analysis and the workshop setup is really to also analyze trends alongside company goals. So when we first start, we get company goals listed out by leadership from the company. We do the survey, we do the interviews, we do the analysis, and then we really bring it all back together and we say, okay, let's look at the goals. Let's look at what's going on. Let's share a little bit about why that part in particular becomes so important.
Yeah, it's always important to identify actual challenges, which are challenges to the growth and the meeting of goals for the company versus distractions. So in our survey analysis or in our interview analysis, we might flag something as seeming undesirable based on the sentiment of the interviewee or by the numbers in the survey. But if that doesn't actually have anything to do with the company's goals, then it's not really a point of focus. It's not really a challenge. Marie or Rachel, maybe you could give a little bit of an example of that.
So I think one example of that would be, one of our questions on our survey is whether or not the majority of your team is certified with some sort of PMP or CAPM certificate. And, there's value to that. But when we look at it, it's not a requirement that everyone on your team does have that certification, but it does allow us to know how to tailor the conversation or tailor some of the choices we make in, recommendations down the road. And I know we've had a couple of times where something comes up where like a client doesn't understand the inner workings of our business, but for a client to be happy, they don't need to know that. So it brings the score down a little bit, not, statistically significant, but then we turn around and we say, let's not work on that, because ultimately if we work on these other things, that will self-correct. So that's, I think, one of the examples that immediately comes to mind for me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about getting back to the goals of the company at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So on the kind of theme of examples, I do actually have one slide, and I'm going to pull it up because I think I'm a visual learner, and I think we find that with a lot of our clients as well. So I'm going to share this slide, and this is an example of some communication questions that we asked a client. Let's kind of run through what we might talk about with this particular client.
Yeah, so with this specific client, when you're first looking at these numbers, right, the numbers in our lollipop charts are really high. So like the beginning of the conversation is, it seems like y'all are really good at communicating within your organization. But what we also notice is, right, those two data points on either ends are 88%, which, just if you see 88%, you're like, oh, that's good, right? In school grades, that's almost an A, right? It's a high B. But actually there was kind of not a ton of variation in the numbers. So even small differences like this kind of were a flag. And so employees communicate effectively with one another is one, and the quality of communication within the organization during the project. Those were the two things that we kind of flagged as, These may be issue areas. And that was really kind of brought home with our interview data, which if we want to click, we had a couple pulled quotes from the interviews that kind of showed, hey, we thought this was a flag. So did the people that we talked to. So, so that would be this slide, and I could have missed things. So I'm going to open the floor for other people to talk.
No, I think that's a great synopsis. And I think too, part of the conversation with this particular client is, what is it that's making your communication inefficient or ineffective? And I think when we kind of had this conversation, it immediately came back to what we knew was a major source of trouble. And it was a different theme. And it was, again, one of those things that this doesn't necessarily need to be hit head on. We need to fix the root of the problem. And so, it's a great example to what Justin was saying a minute ago of let's look at what your goals are and how this is impeding you from getting to those goals. So any other thoughts, Justin or Rachel, on that?
No, I just want to say, yeah, that's a really excellent example of why it's important that we do go for both the survey data as well as the in-depth interview data. And it really, like Rachel was saying earlier, allows us to go in much more depth and identify different aspects of challenges that we might not have identified otherwise.
Okay, so I think that slide is such a great example of how in detail we go with the data. But something else I wanted to point out is that we actually do give our clients an overall score based on the survey data, as well as breaking it down into specific sections. So our 4 sections that we break it down to are organizational structure, operations optimization, communication, and the project management office. So we're able to kind of give them just that big picture look at, hey, this is how you're doing overall, as well as break it down by the position or the different departments that are taking the survey as well. And I think that's a really awesome kind of takeaway for our clients, as well as an opportunity for them to possibly take the survey again, once they've implemented some of the things that we give them as suggestions, to see that score rise.
That's such a good point, Rachel. And we love the idea that data is measurable over time. I mean, that's kind of why we do this as well. So I think the baseline score they get on day 1 of these interviews, the workshop gives them the roadmap. And then, if they need us to stand by and walk with them along that change management journey, we can do that. But usually, we see our clients so excited, they get something in right away. So, we've done it both ways. But I personally think our AIM assessment is one of our strongest tools in our tool belt, and something that our clients genuinely appreciate. So, well, thank you for joining us today and letting us share more about how we help optimize operations and elevate results for the world of business. If you have any questions or you're interested in learning more about how an AIM workshop can help your business, get in touch with us either via email, on our website at boostmidwest.com, or on social media at Boost Midwest. And we look forward to seeing you again at next month's Coffee Corner.